Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Job ter Haar and this is the second video about chords. How can we make our chords more expressive, more varied and more interesting? Today I will talk about a special way of breaking or arpeggiating chords, namely back and forth. So you start on the top note, you go down and then you go up again. And I was not aware of that possibility until I saw the violin version of the cello sonatas by Gimignani. That's a version that he made himself, and he published it quite a few years later than the cello sonatas themselves. And it's interesting to compare the two sets because the cello versions have less ornaments, the violin version is more elaborate. And I think it has to do with the fact that it was published later. So many things that people would take for granted in the 30s would have to be made explicit in the 1750s. So I think we can learn a lot from the violin versions of the sonata about how to play the cello version. And one of the things that stood out was the way he writes out the arpeggiation of the second sonata, the beginning. That's the cello version, but if I sort of reverse engineer the violin version to the cello, it sounds like this. So he writes out this kind of arpeggiating that starts on the top note, then goes to the bass note and comes back to the top note. And this is not something that only Gimignani was doing. I've seen examples in other violin sonatas, including one from Leclerc. In this example that I took from David Boyden's book about the history of the violin, I think it's clear that a similar way of arpeggiating is intended as the Gimignani example, although David Boyden suggests that you should break it top down. I don't think that makes sense because the melody notes are continued, and since we learned in the previous video that in those cases you should actually end on the top note, I don't think it is a good idea to play it upside down. So apparently this is a thing in the 18th century, and once this is on the table, I think it's interesting to see where we could apply that. And I will give some examples from the Bach suite, since I have my cello piccolo here. But once you start thinking about it, I think you will find many examples where it could be beautiful or effective. I like to do it when the melody is interrupted by the chords, and after the chord you have some time to let it resonate. And this is often the case in allemandes. So for instance, the allemande of the first suite. I give an upbeat, and then I immediately have to go to the bottom string. But I could, since I have time after the chord, I could also do. And I could do the same in the allemande of the sixth suite. But also in some sarabandes it makes a lot of sense. So for instance in the sarabande of the first suite. Or in the second half.